What's going on, everybody? My name is Colton. Welcome back to NFL Weekly Picks. Before we jump into this week's picks, let's take a look back at Week 4. I was out in Vegas for last week, ended up seeing the Raiders game in person with my friends. It was a great game. Let's take a quick look at some of the spreads. The Seahawks was way tighter than it should have been, but they did get the win, which obviously very happy about. Nothing crazy that really stands out. I think one of the bigger ones was being wrong in the Chargers. The Giants came out very strong. I was very high on the Falcons last week. That was relatively easy. Patriots just blow the doors off the Panthers. I continue to be wrong about the Titans. I've picked them several weeks now, and they just continue to struggle. Saints get a big cover in Buffalo. That was never really in question in terms of the cover. Jaguars end up winning outright. The game that I was out at there, -1.5 for the Raiders. Just they couldn't get it done. They went for the field goal for the win. It got blocked. Geno Smith had a really tough game, but the Bears looked good. Give them credit. They had a freaking tie. Always hate a tie. They should abolish a tie, but the Packers end up tying the Cowboys. And then Monday night, we split them with the Dolphins and the Bengals. So overall, not a terrible week. 9-7 once again brings us to 37-27 on the season. My lock of the week was that Seahawks game on Thursday Night Football, so we are now 3-1 in locks. All-time record sits at 337 and 264, and the all-time locks are now at 24, 15, and 1. But that's enough about last week. Let's get into week number 5. As you can see, I'm recording this after Thursday night, and I did get the Thursday Night Football game wrong. Was never going to pick the Niners in that matchup. Mac Jones and a bunch of backups. They somehow got it done. Props to them. Maybe it says more about the Rams. I don't know how they lose that game at home, but they did. They forced overtime, and the Niners held on to win. The -5.5 was never really even in play unless the Rams get the ball first in overtime. The Niners really controlled much of that game. But let's start over in London. Back-to-back weeks that the Vikings are overseas. They lost in Ireland, of course, by 3 to the Steelers. They now play the Browns in London, and I am going to take the Vikings here -3.5. I'm seeing a lot of love for the Browns this week. Dylan Gabriel in his first ever NFL start. I think Dylan Gabriel will do some exciting things and kind of ignite the Browns fan base a bit after, just mediocrity from an aging Joe Flacco, but I still think a Brian Flores defense against a rookie quarterback. This is kind of what I said about Brian Flores against Jake Browning a few weeks ago, and the Vikings just absolutely stomped them. I think a similar thing happens here, except it's a little closer. I still think the Vikings can win this game 24-14 or something along those lines. I will trust in Carson Wentz to do enough against a very good Browns defense. They need to give him some time. I think they need to run the ball with Jordan Mason. This is a tough defense to run on, but I think if they do that early enough and often enough, I think that'll open up some things for Carson Wentz in the passing game in the second half, and I think they do just enough to cover this number. Next up, we got the Raiders and the Colts. I am on the Raiders again here, +6.5. I think the number's just a little bit too big. I do expect, actually, I've been back and forth on who's going to win this game outright. I think I might end up pulling the trigger on the Raiders. I just think this team is a little bit better than what they're showing right now. The Colts are a little, I'm not going to say overrated anymore because they clearly have shown they're a good team. They probably should have beat the Rams if Adonai Mitchell doesn't start celebrating a little too early. But this is just a weird gut feeling game. I think the Raiders kind of a desperation spot at 1-3 after some tough losses. Genty finally got going. If he can find some success on the ground, I think the Colts are susceptible to allowing the Raiders to make this game close. And if they do make it close late in the game, I think Geno will bounce back. He's had a rough start to the year. I'm going to take the points, but again, I faded the Colts a lot, and they've burned me a lot, so we will see. All right, next up, Giants and the Saints. I know everybody's going to be on the Giants here at +1.5 after Jackson Dart's electrifying debut. They beat the 3-0 Chargers. Brian Dable's hugging him on the sideline. The fans are going wild. Now you go on the road into New Orleans, into a tough place to play against a team that really has not been as bad as I, one, thought they would be, and two, as their record says they are. They're 0-4, but they have been in some competitive games. The defense is kind of sneaky, not bad, and I think Jackson Dart will have some issues in this road environment against a decent defense. Spencer Rattler, I've really seen some improvements. I think he's making better reads. I think he's having some really nice scrambling moments. I think he's actually going to do pretty well in this game. I know it's tough betting on Spencer Rattler, who is 0-10 as a starter, but I really don't think it's been majority his fault, and I think against the Giants here, I think they will actually find a lot of success and play their best game of the year. So I'm going to take the Saints as a favorite at home. Next up, we get the Cowboys and Jets, and this is just the too easy game of the week, and it really sucks because I really like the Cowboys -2.5, but why is it only 2.5? In New York, the Jets have been very bad, probably one of the bottom 5 teams in the league. They're 0-4. They cannot move the football. They are just a shell of themselves offensively. They had one good week against Pittsburgh in week 1, and since then they have looked pretty abysmal week in and week out. The Cowboys do have injuries, and their defense is bad, but they just went toe-to-toe with the Packers. It's one of those things where it's like you almost feel like you have to take the Jets just because it feels too easy to be on the Cowboys, and I could very easily see this be a spot you look back next week and be like, damn, it was too easy. The Jets cover. The Jets win outright. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those games where it feels really stinky, but I can't not. I got to wait and see. And the Jets have to play well before I bet them at plus 2.5. You know, the Cowboys, I still trust Dak enough. I think the Cowboys win this game. I feel like 27-13 or something, but I'm sure it'll be a 3-point game late. Just with how this number is, it's scaring me a lot. Moving right along, we go to Philly. The Broncos are at Philadelphia to take on the 4-0 Eagles. The Broncos are starting to find a rhythm. I do think they are still a good team. I think, I faded them last week. I thought the Bengals would keep that close. They manhandled Cincinnati at home. So I'm going to trust them this week. I think Bo Nix will continue to find a groove. They haven't been particularly dominant in any game this season, except that game against a backup quarterback in Jake Browning. So this is a tall task, but I think their defense is good enough. The Eagles have not clicked on all cylinders by any means on offense. A.J. Brown has got to get more involved at some point in one of these tougher games. I will take the Broncos to cover. I'm not sure they'll necessarily win, but plus 4.5, just enough. Give me a 3-point game on the road. All right, next up, we got the Dolphins and the Panthers, a gross game. I'm going to go back to the Panthers, minus 1.5. I've had a pretty good beat on this team. I really felt like they would get blown out a week ago against the Patriots, and that is exactly what happened. Dolphins, they showed that they're not the worst team in football. They beat the Jets on Monday night. Tyreek Hill, gruesome injury, out for the year. Best wishes to him. That was an ugly, ugly injury. Jalen Waddle obviously has to step up. We should see more of Achane and Ollie Gordon. I think Darren Waller is an interesting piece. I think the Dolphins have some semblance of an offense, but I think the Panthers bounce back. We saw how well they played at home against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. I think they're kind of going to be a Jekyll and Hyde team. And I think this is an interesting spot to back them. I think Ted McMillan finally gets into the end zone. I would really start him in fantasy. I think he's going to have a good day against a pretty weak Dolphins secondary. Don't be fooled into thinking the Dolphins are a good defense. They are simply not. They held the Jets for the most part, but that is the New York Jets, and we just addressed them. So give me the Panthers minus 1.5. I think Bryce Young does some good things at home. All right, moving right along, we got the Ravens hosting the Texans. Now, this number is obviously changed since the Lamar Jackson injury news. I'm picking it at this number, so I am taking the Texans plus 3.5. I won't actually make it my lock either, because I don't even think it's a lock. Even with Cooper Rush, I think the Ravens are live in this game, but I do have to take C.J. Stroud and the Texans. The Ravens are desperate, but they just have not figured it out. Their defense is bleeding yards. The Texans' defense, at least, is consistent. I think they will get after the quarterback, get after Cooper Rush, make him uncomfortable for 4 quarters. I think the Texans do win this game. Not a whole lot to say. I would look to not start any Ravens players outside of Derrick Henry, because I think this will be a pretty lackluster day from the Baltimore offense. All right, I don't advise you to tail me on this one, but I am taking the Titans again, plus 7.5. Listen, I can't get off this team. I think they're still catching too many points against a Cardinals team that is not dominant by any means. 7.5 is just, I think, a crazy number to lay with Arizona. I have not found a lot of success betting on the Titans, obviously dating back to the beginning of last year, but I'm going to do it again. I think they actually might win this game outright. Again, I don't recommend tailing me on this one. Just wait a week and see, but I am going to pick the Tennessee Titans to go into Arizona and at least lose by, 7 or less. I sound like a broken record, but I still like Eli Manor, Chico Okonkwo. I still like some of those guys, pieces on offense to get into a rhythm with Cam Ward. I still think Cam Ward is not too bad, and I think he is going to find some success one week or another here, and I think this is another great spot to do so. I do think Marvin Harrison showed a lot of good things against Seattle. He really came into his own in that second half. That was great for his confidence. I would start him without hesitation as well, of course. Weird situation going on with the Cardinals backfield. Trey Benson hurt in addition to James Conner now, so it's DeMarcado and Michael Carter. It sounds like Michael Carter is going to get the primary first and down snap, so I would look to him as a flex play. DeMarcado, maybe sit him on the bench for 1 week. Benson is going to be out multiple weeks, so see how this Cardinals backfield shapes up. But I think Michael Carter is in a spot where you could play him as a deeper flex option. Next up, we got the Bucs and the Seahawks. I'm going to take the Seahawks minus 3.5. I'm really loving what I'm seeing here. They do have some defensive injuries. Once again, Devin Witherspoon is out, Julian Love. But the Bucs are, decimated with injuries as well. They are not at full strength. I kind of like JSN anytime touchdown. He did not score last week, but he is at plus 105, plus 125, I believe, on FanDuel. I would probably sprinkle that because I think this offense is just going to continue to hum, and the defense is just loaded. Despite the injuries, I still think the Seahawks give Baker a difficult time, and I think the Seahawks can win this game and cover that number. Really excited. I know I get a lot of hate for picking the Seahawks to not only win the division, but be a strong playoff team. Well, after this week, they could very well be 4-1. Hopefully we get to that. Still early in the season, but I'm really loving what I'm seeing out of my team. Next up, another one that doesn't feel too easy because you're still laying 10.5, but how can you back the Bengals after what we saw a week ago? They're not making any changes. Jamar Chase is frustrated. T. Higgins is frustrated. Chase Brown's not doing a whole lot. Jake Browning does not look like the guy I saw 2 years ago when he kept them in football games. I have to take the Lions minus 10.5 for those reasons. I think this team is just so much better than the Bengals right now, and the Bengals defense is pretty bad. I can't find a path for the Bengals to win or cover this game. Therefore, I have to back the Lions on the road. Despite it being a large number, it honestly feels like it could be 13.5 plus. So honestly makes me a little skeptical because I feel like the Bengals have to play better in one of these games, but until I see it, I just can't back them at that number. Next up, Commanders and the Chargers. Chargers laying 2.5 at home. We are seeing Jaden Daniels coming back into the fold for the Commanders, which is obviously huge news for Washington. I'm still going to roll with the Chargers. I think they need to bounce back after a brutal loss to the 0-3 Giants. I think Omarion Hampton's really coming in to his own. I think he'll have a big day here. Commanders can't really stop the run. Expect him. I would go over 73 yards for Hampton, probably in any time as well. I really like this Chargers run game in this one. And I think Jaden Daniels will make it more competitive. I think this will be a close game, but I think the Chargers win this thing like 27-24, 30-27, something like that. So give me the Chargers. Sunday Night Football, we get the Patriots at the Bills. This is just a lean, but I am going to take the Patriots plus 7.5. I don't feel great about it because the Bills are so good, but I think 7.5 is a little too much for a divisional matchup with a team that is playing better football. They are kind of up and down, kind of similar to the Panthers in some regard with the ups and downs, but I think they are a much better football team than that, and I do think they'll give the Bills some problems. The Bills are just quietly humming along 4-0. I do think they're going to be challenged at some point. I think Drake May will have a pretty good game. I would look at his over rushing, his over 1.5 touchdowns passing. I think he's going to have a really good day against a Buffalo defense that hasn't been overly impressive. They were very much live to lose that game against the Saints if a couple things don't go their way. A lot of ifs, buts, should have, could have, would have, but I'm just saying I think 7.5 is a big number against a Patriots team, which I believe is better than the Saints. Give me the Patriots plus 7.5 on the road. In Monday Night Football, I don't have a good feel for this one, but I'm taking the Chiefs minus 3.5. Listen, I've been backing the Jaguars a lot. They really impressed me last week, getting the win outright against the Niners. Picking that felt a little sketchy last week, but we got it. We got the win there. This week now against a better Kansas City team, I think the Chiefs are going to start rolling. Worthy's back. They look like a completely different offense against the Ravens. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot on this one. I just have a slight lean. I think this could be a 24-20 game and the Chiefs escape with the cover. All right, lock of the week. This is disgusting. I don't feel good about making many of these games my lock of the week. This is crazy. I'm going to take the Saints minus 1.5 as my locks. I know it's crazy, but I just think this is such a good situational spot for New Orleans. The Giants riding that high of, one big victory with the rookie quarterback going on the road now. I just think this is a great spot for New Orleans, so I'm going to take the Saints minus 1.5 as my lock of the week, as gross as that sounds. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know your predictions for week number 5. Be on the lookout for the Las Vegas trip video that will be releasing soon. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. But I will see you guys all very soon. Enjoy week number 5 and the baseball playoffs. Hopefully the Mariners catch the victory tonight in Game 1 against the Tigers. So see you all very soon, and go Mariners.